Ian, excited to have you on today. Excited to have the conversation with you guys. For those that haven't had a chance to meet you or explore ChartHop before, would love to just kind of get the 101 on back in 2018. Like, what was the problem that you originally set out to solve, and kind of where are you guys at today?
So I had been building tech my whole life and started a company in the marketing tech space that grew. I think it outstripped our initial expectations of growing, and it just went. I went from managing a small team to having to really think about how are we going to grow and scale a couple hundred person organization? Like how are we going to create the structure and create the right culture and the team, get the right people in the right seats. And, an organization, it changes like quickly, especially as it's scaling. And being responsive to all that change and having the sort of insight and intelligence of what was even happening felt like something that traditional HR software didn't do incredibly well. So I built the first version of ChartHop really as a planning and analytics tool that could bring in all kinds of data from different HR systems and help leaders make kind of real-time changes to that plan and get a lot of insight into what was going on in the organization. Over time, we've evolved the vision, the capabilities a lot. I think, especially just there's a convergence. I guess we'll talk about this between finance, HR, ops, leadership, all the things. And we've added a lot more to our platform. It's gone beyond what I think was really focused on analytics to really a system of workforce intelligence, orchestration, and action.
Yeah, and I remember like first seeing the ChartHop platform probably was around 2020. And I think the headcount planning features were extremely novel at the time. Like I don't think, especially in the mid-market space, like no one was really delivering that for HR. But it felt like you and all kind of HR tech founders right around 21, 22 kind of felt some pressure to not just be viewed as a point solution, but try to become more of a platform and add more models. Is that a fair characterization? Can you tell us a little bit more about like what that expansion felt like?
Yeah, I don't know if it was pressure as much as it was a kind of inevitable demand of if you've got a system where it's got all your people data, you're doing all your planning and workforce planning, and there's a kind of natural gravitational pull where customers want to use that system for more things than it's initially capable of. I mean, and that continues to the present day. A customer from a large, tens of thousand person org wants to connect their system to a system we've never connected before that's going to bring out some new capabilities. So it really comes from customers, and when they have this ready access to data and they have this ability to plan, there's just a lot of adjacencies that people want to be able to do. So like very early on, for example, comp planning is now a huge part of our product, and we have customers that use ChartHop, for comp planning, but that really came out of people were doing workforce planning and headcount planning, which was our bread and butter, and it was a natural adjacency to be able to model compensation impacts along with org structure impacts.
Yeah, I can see how, I mean, just like you said, convergence, like headcount planning is sort of put all of the systems, all the data all together. Like it's one of those processes that really touches a lot of different parts of the business and a lot of different data sets. And so I can imagine you feel that, well, we could also extend it over here. We could also extend it into creating requisitions. Should we build an ATS? Like, how do you as a leader decide where to say this is our domain expertise versus this is a place where we're going to focus more on integrations and working with best in class partners?
We've got a line of what is our unified data model going to be really strong at, and where's where's the AI going to benefit from shared context? And so you take something like an ATS. We have like great ATS partners like Greenhouse and Ashby and others, and they all they do an amazing job with everything that engages the candidate, and we're not going to blunting our focus by trying to build a candidate experience as well as a internal workforce intelligence is just you're actually not you're not only going to not do that well from a product standpoint if you try to build both, but our AI is not going to have the kind of unity of context that makes it helpful. So we draw lines where we just don't think that we can lend unique expertise, or where the platform isn't going to help. But anything that where leaders are thinking about uh, their people, their business strategy and operations, and how those things tie together and are working to manage and operate their business better, that's all sort of in our wheelhouse.
Got it. And does that kind of scope of what you guys want to solve, does it change for like the size and maturity of an organization? Meaning like maybe a smaller organization, they might be using entire platform through ChartHop, where a large enterprise, maybe it's the kind of core compensation and headcount planning. Are you seeing any like bifurcation that way?
Yes, I'd say that's definitely true. I think you know, we for larger orgs, they often have like very, very significant people, like infrastructure. They've got an HRS, they got SAP, or they've got Workday, or they've got ADP. They've got, some really strong foundational infrastructure in place. And so our job is to create a kind of intelligence layer on top of that existing infrastructure. For a smaller company, they might be building that infrastructure in the first place. And well, we're not going to handle payroll. We're going to, a partner like an ADP is going to be best in class at that. But for a smaller organization that's sort of building their first, data infrastructure, it's going to make a lot of sense to consolidate as much as they can onto a system of intelligence.
Yeah. And so I've seen some announcements from you guys about some of the things you guys have been rolling out recently. And on that data intelligence model, like tell us a little bit more about where that product's heading. Or I know it's kind of maybe not a product standalone, it's more like the architecture underneath everything. But what are some of the things that you guys have released recently, and some of the things that like AI is allowing you guys to do with that data?
Yeah. Well, the platform was really, you know, from the beginning, I was thinking about how can we make, you know, information more transparent, more accessible, more clearly organized, so that leaders can operate better and make better decisions. And so that started with, I think, this sort of, visualization and planning and some sort of basic insights. But obviously now we've moved from, uh, basic types of insights of a few years ago to LLMs can pull together all kinds of different data sources and understand, like, hey, why do we have turnover in this region? Is it correlated with the performance or tenure of this group of managers? Or like, correlating all of the exit interview feedback, like how does that tie to some of the initiatives that we're like working to drive? Or if so like you can pull a lot of workforce intelligence, and that's basically we launched our Ask ChartHop AI that can pull together any kind of these types of data about a year ago. We had it in beta for a while before that with a few customers, but that has, I mean, the usage of that has just kind of gone crazy. I think we kind of launched it, and it was really steadily growing really nicely. And I'd say as people have realized the value of connecting all this data, the last 3, 4 months, the usage has kind of exploded.
Is the reason for that usage explosion, your hypothesis, is it existing users that, like, dipped their toe and then were like, "Wow, this is great," and started spending more time on it? Or is it new users who hadn't touched it that were just like, "I'm feeling pressure to use LLMs from maybe my boss or the media or whatever," and so, like, where do you think that's coming from?
I think it's all the above. I think that maybe, 24 months ago, maybe HR practitioners were more AI curious. Than 12 months ago, people started really, using AI and using the broad LLMs in a lot of ways. Um, this last year has been people really discovering that you can apply AI to all kinds of workforce intelligence kinds of challenges. And so I think for existing customers, we've seen a lot of them just, you know, turn on more and more of the AI features and use Ask ChartHop more and more to help with their decision process and use our uh, agentic scenario planning to plan out different scenarios to respond to change as the organization evolves. So a lot of that's been organic from existing customers. It's also just the case that newer customers that come on board, um, there's there's more of a expectation going in that they know that ChartHop AI is one of the reasons that they onboarded. So it's really been from both. Um, but it's been actually pretty exciting to see. As a technologist, when you build something and just lots of people start using it, it's really exciting. Um, but that's we have what people are using today versus what uh, we're using internally and testing with a couple folks, and we'll announce and release perhaps after this, perhaps around the time this podcast comes out. I don't know when this be, but the we we're really moving from a system of intelligence to a system of action, and so um, ChartHop has always had really strong automation capabilities, but when you can actually build, uh, train, and construct agents that can really just take away all of like so many tedious tasks when you're like dealing with all this, when you're trying to run a business and operate and at scale make sense of your people organization, there's so much like tedium that has to happen to get to the strategic decisions you need to make. And AI agents are extremely good at taking out the tedium. So, just being able to use ChartHop as a system of action and a system to really just help customers operate their businesses better and um, you know, move from thinking about their business better to uh, actually running the business in a new way through AI.
This might sound elementary, but I think it'd be helpful to explain to people like how using ChartHop AI differs from taking those data sets, like just downloading your workday data and your greenhouse data, uploading it all into ChatGPT and saying, "Give me this insight," or "Do this task," for like
Yeah, one of the biggest is that we're built on a secure permissions model. And I think that when you're thinking about HR data, financial data, company data, like that is, I mean, that's a really significant, liability issue if that is being sort of, that data is not handled very, very carefully. And so we've really spent, years building and investing in a really strong access control that, you know, that anyone using ChartHop, right down to the data point level, is going to see only the data that they have the access to consume. So that allows you to, you know, you might have your CHRO who maybe has access to all the data, or your CEO who has access to all the data, but it allows you to push down the use of decision making and tools to every level, and to allow people to share and collaborate between each other and with agents without with total confidence that data is not, like, sensitive data about your people and your employees is not going to leak, because we've been built for this type of purpose. Whereas, sort of copying and pasting and downloading a bunch of data together, um, you're not necessarily going to have that, like, granular access control. Like, we've thought through like many different specific cases around this type of data, um, and been battle tested on that over the years. When we launched, we had a much more sophisticated permissions model than most of the mid-market HR systems. Probably about like 2-3 years ago, we really from everything we had learned, we took it to a just enterprise grade level where there is, you know, ChartHop is is actually the most robust permission system in the market, I think. Um, so that is one starting point. Like, you need this to be safe. If you're going to be applying AI to people decisions, to company strategy decisions, that needs to be done in a safe way, secure way. And that responsibility is something we think about every day. Whereas, you know, if you're a larger organization and you want the kind of like compliance and control, you must do this kind of work in a system that's built for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I echo that, like, permission control piece that, I think as some functionality may get commoditized with the way that we can write code these days, like, that permission layer is the hard context that needs to be right in an organization to let everything else happen afterwards. And, I know in our experience with clients that have looked at ChartHop, we've had some that have become customers and been thrilled about it. We've also had some that have said, I'm a small mid-market company and this was a really strong platform and I didn't know if I could pull that off. And so, I think that level of capability served this foundational purpose to unlock what you guys are about to do now. So one quick question on the agentic piece that you were talking about. Can you give like specific examples of like the tedium that typically prevents the strategy element that you feel like agents are really well equipped to handle?
Agents are great cleaning up data. Like, hey, let me go find everybody who, we've detected has moved and hasn't updated their address, send them a message about it and follow up until they get that information in, right? Think about how much time people spend just like chasing down that type of thing. Certainly, all kinds of automated onboarding workflows, chasing down documents that need to be signed. Like, there's just so much when you think about the like HR function to do the work of HR, which is to like get the success of the people resourcing and strategy that you have for the organization. There's so much, I don't want to call it busy work, but there's just so much stuff that you need to have together. So you can really just ask an agent, you can just write an agent in normal human language. And this is a big thing. Like you mentioned, we do play a little bit further up market than in terms of our sophistication and complexity than some of the smaller folks. But when you can just build an agent or like set up an automation or do something by just like typing it in English
Or
instead
speaking
of
to it?
having to
Yeah.
translate it to like programmer speak. You just like ask the AI to do something, and it, obviously we've put a lot of thought into how it confirms and how it, verifies. And, one of the things we're really, really being thoughtful is making sure that there's human in the loop, especially for things where, from all kinds of standpoints, there needs to be a human in the loop. But it becomes so much easier, and there's like this democratization of who can build who can build internal systems when you have a platform like ChartHop that's built for this to do it in a secure and robust way.
Yeah, I mean, we've always kind of played this game with businesses of like the complexity of a system versus the administrative burden of it. And you kind of have to get that thing right. It's like, oh, you're a small company, maybe finance manager does payroll and HR. Like Gusto is real simple off the shelf. But I think that like that paradigm starts to break down a little bit, like you're saying, where if user interfaces all move to chat, then they're all sort of as easy to manage or work within as the next one. And it's really what's behind that chatbot, right? Like how smart, permission driven, clean data, all that sits behind it that actually dictates it. So, yeah, interesting insight. Another question I have for you is I'm sure you've given some thought to this, but as we move into agentic models, how does that change what you think would happen to like pricing and price structures for businesses, as well as, imagine with your guys' business, there's third party data that needs to be accessed. And right now, maybe there isn't gating on that, but do you foresee stuff like that changing?
Yeah, it's definitely something that, we've given a lot of thought to. I think, you know, when you are building a system that is for internal use, you're generally gonna want the cost to scale with the size of the organization, which is right. But especially once you start introducing automation and variable token consumption and all these things, we just want to make sure that people aren't paying for usage that they're not doing, and at the same time, people who have a tremendous amount of usage, you want to make sure that like we cover our costs because it does have a different marginal impact for a software business than previously when you're relying on an LLM. We want to make sure if you look at like, if you think about how like Salesforce prices Agentforce, right? They have a few different models, and I think it's important when you're uh, working with HR and finance buyer, to have some approaches that will work for different types of needs. And so we'll be announcing some things around our pricing in these areas, but ultimately we want to make ourselves, uh, you know, priced in the right zone that people can make use of all of this capability. So the challenge of the pure usage model, which is always, is that there's often a fixed budget for internal ops that people are a little worried about scalability of costs. So you want to combine like the predictability of cost with having, some variance so that people aren't paying for things they don't use. I mean, maybe like a little lesson for us in pricing, and probably a lot of HR vendors over the years. When we first launched, we really only had one product, and it was people analytics and headcount planning. And then as we added more and more, modules or capability, we shifted away from a good, better, best model to a core plus modules, because we really want to work with the particular buyer. They may have a system that they're using for performance, let's say, and that's great. We're going to work with that and integrate with that. So we try to be really flexible. I think it's important for internal systems. But also, I do think AI usage introduces some new models.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it seems like where a lot of businesses are heading is that subscription plus credit model, right? And it's actually like we use HubSpot. That's what our model is. We've got our base subscription and then they have intelligence AI credits and those can fluctuate based on usage. So it seems like just in talking to other HCM vendors, like that's kind of the direction everyone seems to be heading.
Yeah. And I think people are pretty comfortable with that, as long as there's just some clarity on ability to kind of estimate where they're going to land.
Yeah, yeah. The last thing, because I know we're coming up on the half hour mark. And this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much. I'm kind of wheels are turning all over the place, but um, I have to imagine you followed news and media and some of the stories coming out about AI. And so, just curious, like a couple weeks ago, when the stock market was just dumping every SaaS stock out there, and people writing articles, software is dead. Like, how do you interpret stories like that?
Well, I mean, I think some software is dead. Bad software might be dead. Like I do think like software is evolving. That's what it is. And the bar for what like good software goes up when people can vibe code something easy off the shelf. I think, we maybe had an era where it was where there was a glut of like really simple to build stuff. And so I think the vendors that have invested in like deep capability and keep raising the bar with AI capability and are backed by really like, human beings who create great service, uh, in an increasingly AI world. I think there's always value in being able to reach some real human beings when you're, making decisions that are like legal impacting, employment impacting types of decisions. I sort of just feel like as a software company that is software and I feel pretty good. I mean, for us, like growth has picked up. This last year has been our best year in years. It's been because we've made the right investments in terms of our technology and what we do for buyers. So I feel pretty optimistic that we're going from an era where software was just annoying to use to this era where like software can talk. What a time to be alive! Like I've been programming for decades, and I've never seen a platform shift like this one. I mean, this is the best one. I'm excited, I would say.
Hey, the enthusiasm's pouring off the screen. I love it. I'm getting excited too, just hearing it. So, no, I think we view it pretty similarly. It's gonna definitely have some losers, but also some winners. And I think it's just, to me, I think it's putting a bigger spotlight on other parts of the business, like your marketing, your data, your moats, like other parts of the business become even more important if we feel like there's sort of a baseline of software excellence that can be achieved relatively easily.
Yeah, I think that's right. Building stuff is always the easy part. It's operating it and the investment over time. That's the hard part. And you know, that takes expertise and investment.
Well, it's been a great conversation, I really appreciate your time. So thanks for joining us this morning and excited for our next conversation someday.
Thanks so much, Brett. This was great.